I still see them in my nightmares riding away, my sister Renee and her best friend Mary. I was 10, and I'd just told Renee I hated her because she wouldn't let me come. She just laughed and pedaled off down our street, her blonde hair catching the sun. When they didn't come home for dinner, the whole town started looking. They found Mary's bike in a ditch, its handlebar bent, but Renee and her bike were gone. If you've ever lived with a question that has no answer, a hole in your life that you can't walk around, maybe this story will make sense to you. Let me know in the comments if you've ever felt that kind of permanent cold in your bones missing. My name is Emily. I'm 42 years old now. I live in the house I grew up in. I moved back in 2025 when my father's heart started to give him trouble. My mother's mind started to go long before that. It's funny, the things that break a family. Or maybe not funny. Maybe it's just inevitable. Our family didn't just crack. It was hollowed out, starting on that bright July afternoon in 1993. For 31 years, the story was always the same. It was the story the police settled on in the first 48 hours, a hit and run, or a snatch and grab, a white van, a transient. Someone saw Mary's bike, mangled in the ditch on Old Creek Road. The handlebar was bent at a sick angle. They saw the skid marks on the pavement. So, the theory went, a car hit Mary. Renee, as the witness, was taken. Or maybe they were both taken, and Mary's bike was the only thing left behind. But what about Renee's bike? Police said the abductor must have taken it, thrown it in the back of the van. It never made sense. Why take a bike? It's cumbersome. It's evidence. But when you're desperate for an answer, any story will do. The police, back in 93, did a cursory search. They brought dogs. The dogs barked at the ditch, got excited by the road, and then lost the scent. Right next to that ditch, there's always been a trail. It was never a real trail, more of a deer path choked with high grass and blackberry bushes. I remember Detective Robert, a man who smoked too many cigarettes and seemed permanently tired, standing at the mouth of it. He shined his big mag light in. Nothing, he said. Too dense. You couldn't get a bike down there. And that was it. For 31 years, that was the truth. The investigation focused on the road, on transients, on known offenders, on everything. But those woods. My parents became ghosts. My father poured himself into work, into mowing the lawn with a terrifying precision. My mother, she just stopped. She'd sit in Renee's room, which is still Renee's room, by the way, with her New Kids on the Block posters and her dusty cheerleading pom-poms, and she would just hold Renee's pillow. As a kid, I tried to make them laugh. I got good grades. I tried to be the good daughter, but I was just the daughter who was left, the one who said, I hate you. That guilt. It's not like in the movies. It's not a big dramatic breakdown. It's a low-grade fever. It's the reason you can't quite commit to a relationship. It's the reason you move back home, even though the silence in this house is deafening. It's a cold stone in your gut. I've lived with that stone for 31 years. Then last spring, in March of 2024, everything changed. Our town isn't a small town anymore. It's a suburb. The woods I grew up fearing were just property. A developer bought the entire 300-acre parcel that borders Old Creek Road, the land they were too dense to search. They were putting in a subdivision, something called Willow Creek Estates. The phone rang on a Tuesday. I was making my father his oatmeal. It was the sheriff's department. My stomach dropped. When you're us, a call from the police only means one thing. But it wasn't that. Not exactly. Ma'am, this is Detective David Martin, the voice said. He sounded young. Are you Emily, Renee's sister? Yes, I said. My voice was a croak. Ma'am, a construction crew found something this morning off Old Creek Road. We think you need to come and see it. I don't remember the drive. I just remember standing at the edge of a field of mud. The trees were gone. Great weeping gashes in the earth where bulldozers sat silent. A man in a hard hat, James, was talking to the detective. He looked pale. I'm so sorry, ma'am. James said to me, and I was pulling a root ball from that big oak that used to be right there. He pointed. It was tangled. The machine pulled it right up. Detective Martin, who looked to be in his late 30s with kind, tired eyes, held a trash bag. He didn't show me what was in it, not at first. He said, "The crew chief recognized the potential significance. He called us right away." "What is it?" I whispered. He took a deep breath. "It's the front fork and wheel of a bicycle. Blue." I couldn't breathe. "The thing is, ma'am, it was found almost a half-mile in from the road, buried deep. The roots of that oak had grown, well, they'd grown right through it." He didn't need to show me, but I had to see. He pulled back the plastic. It was rusted. It was caked in black earth, but on the fender, cracked and faded but unmistakably there, was a round yellow sticker, a smiley face. I put it there. I remembered the day. It was from a sheet of stickers I got at the dentist. Renee had been mad. "It looks so babyish, Emily," she'd yelled. But she never took it off. I turned away from the detective and I was sick right there in the mud. 31 years. 31 years we'd been looking at the road. 31 years we'd been fed the story of a white van. And all this time, she was in the woods. They were in the woods. The police had been wrong. That day, the world tilted. The story we'd built our grief around, it collapsed. And in its place was a new, terrifying, empty space. My father, when I told him, just sat down. He put his head in his hands and made a sound I'd never heard him make. My mother, she just looked at me, her eyes vacant, and said, "Is Renee coming home for dinner?" That was worse. The discovery of the bike changed the entire gravity of the case. It was no longer a cold case, it was an active crime scene. The construction was halted. That billion-dollar subdivision, it became the largest archaeological dig in our town's history. Detective David Martin was a godsend. He wasn't part of the 1993 investigation. He had no ego tied to the hit-and-run theory. He just saw the evidence. A bike, buried half a mile from the road, entangled in the roots of a 30-year-old tree. "They were on that trail, Emily," he said to me, his voice gentle but firm. "The original detectives missed it. We're not going to." I had to see the old detective. Robert. He was in his late 70s, living in a retirement community 2 towns over. I went alone. He remembered the case, of course. It was the one that haunted him. "We looked," he insisted, his voice thin and papery. He sat in a stained recliner, an oxygen tank hissing beside him. "We did everything. The dogs ran the road." "You missed it," I said. I wasn't angry. I was just empty. "You found Mary's bike in the ditch and you stopped looking. You stopped." "The trail was too dense," he repeated the same words from 1993. A mantra. "No, it wasn't," I said. They never came back out. You found her bike, Renee's bike. A bulldozer found it." He looked at me, his eyes wide. He hadn't heard. I told him where. His face went pale. He just shook his head. "We missed it," he whispered. "Oh my God, we missed it." I left him there. There was no comfort in his apology. The new search was meticulous. Detective Martin brought in forensics teams, anthropologists from the State University. They set up a grid system, starting from where the bulldozer had found the fork. I was there every day. I couldn't not be. I sat in my car at the edge of the muddy field, drinking bitter coffee from a thermos, watching them work. On the second day, they found the rest of the frame. It was just like James, the construction worker, had said. The oak tree had been a sapling in 1993. As it grew, its roots had wrapped around the metal, pulling it deeper, encasing it. Nature had hidden it. It was proof. Renee's bike had been deliberately hidden, wrapped around that tree, and left. This wasn't an accident. On the third day, about 50 yards from the bike, they found the campsite. It was just a depression in the ground, but to the trained eye, it was a home base. They found old beer cans, not modern aluminum, but the old steel kind with the pull tabs. They found the rotted remains of a sleeping bag and a thick flannel shirt, the pattern barely visible. And they found a fire pit, the stones still in a circle, the charcoal buried under decades of leaf mulch. Detective Martin bagged everything. The cans might have DNA, he said, his voice quiet with focus. Saliva on the rim. We can try. I went home that night, and for the first time, I did something I hadn't done in 30 years. I went into Renee's room and I opened her desk. I pulled out her diary. My mother had forbidden me from reading it. It's private, she'd whisper. But my mother wasn't really there anymore. I sat on Renee's bed, the springs creaking. I read. It was so normal. Page after page of high school crushes, complaints about homework, notes passed with Mary. My hands were shaking. I felt like I was violating her. Then I got to July 1993, the week before they vanished. July 12th, met someone new today. He's older. He works at the gas station sometimes. His name is Thomas. He's really cool. He told me and Mary we were mature for our age. My blood ran cold. July 14th, saw Thomas again. He was hanging out by the convenience store. He told us he knows a secret place in the woods, an old hunter's blind. He said he'd show us. He said he sometimes camps out there. It sounds so adventurous. Mary is scared. I told her not to be a baby. July 16th, the last entry, tomorrow. Thomas said to meet him at the path by Old Creek Road. We're going to ride our bikes. He said to bring sodas. I can't wait. I ran. I drove to the station, the diary on the passenger seat. I found Detective Martin in his office, his shirt rumpled. His name was Thomas, I said, slamming the diary on his desk. His name was Thomas. The name was a bomb. Detective Martin mobilized everything. Thomas, a part-time worker at the gas station in 1993. They pulled the old files. The name wasn't there. Of course it wasn't. Why would it be? The police were looking for a driver, not a cool, older friend. But they had employment records. The gas station had been a Texaco. It was a bank now, but the parent company had archives. It took 2 agonizing days. Then a match. Thomas Peterson. He was 19 in 1993. He lived in a trailer park that bordered those same woods. He had a minor record. Poaching. In 1992, he'd been questioned. But the file said he had an alibi for the day of the disappearance. His time card said he'd clocked in at 4 p.m. Renee and Mary were last seen at 1 p.m. He had a 3-hour window, Martin said, his face grim. More than enough time. They ran his name. Thomas Peterson, age 51, living in Oregon, 2 DUIs, 1 assault charge in 2005. Nothing major. A life lived on the margins. We're going to talk to him, Martin said. The wait was the worst part, worse than the 31 years of not knowing, because now we were close. I sat with my father. We didn't talk. We just watched the news, which was now camped out at the entrance to the construction site. The whole town was reliving 1993. While Martin was in Oregon, the team at the dig site called me. They'd found something else. Near the fire pit, the ground-penetrating radar had flagged an anomaly. They dug. It was a small metal box, a Dukes of Hazzard lunchbox from the 80s. It was rusted shut. They pried it open in the forensics tent. Inside, cushioned on rotted cotton, was a friendship bracelet, blue and green yarn. I'd made it for Mary, and next to it, a small silver locket, heart-shaped. It was my grandmother's. I had snuck it from my mother's jewelry box and given it to Renee that morning. She'd promised to give it back before Mom noticed. You can't come, she'd said, but you can be with me with the locket, okay? I had forgotten. In the trauma of I hate you, I had completely, utterly forgotten that final kind gesture. I had given her the locket. I collapsed. The guilt was suffocating. I had given it to her. The next day, Detective Martin called. They had Thomas Peterson in custody. He denied it, Emily, Martin said. His voice was exhausted. He denied it all, said he barely remembered the town. Then we showed him the locket. We showed him the pictures of the bike, the one with the smiley face. He asked for a lawyer, but Emily, when I showed him the locket, he started to cry. The radar found one last thing. The search team had been using it on the entire grid, and near the base of a rock outcropping 20 yards from the fire pit, they found it, an area of disturbed earth I wasn't allowed to see. They put up a black screen. I just heard the clicks of cameras, the quiet, respectful murmurs. I heard an anthropologist say of 2 individuals adolescent. I knew. I sat on the cold, hard ground. I didn't cry. I just felt the stone in my gut dissolve. It didn't feel like relief. It felt like nothing. The end of the story. I called my father. Dad, I said. They found them, he whispered. It wasn't a question. Yes, I heard him weep. A 31-year-old sob. The case was airtight. The DNA from the beer cans was a partial match, but good enough to link him. The diary, the locket, the bikes, the bodies. His lawyer cut a deal, a full confession in exchange for life without parole. They would spare him the death penalty. I had to know. I needed the what. My father didn't. He and my mother, who was now in a full-time care facility, were preparing for a funeral. But I needed the final pages. Detective Martin let me read the transcript of the confession. It was pathetic. It wasn't a monster in a van. It was just a stupid, lonely 19-year-old boy, Thomas Peterson. He was the cool, older guy. He liked the power it gave him, having these 2 pretty 14-year-old girls look up to him. He lured them out there. He'd done it before with other kids, shown them the secret blind. That day he'd been drinking. He told them to ride down the trail. Mary hit a root and bent her handlebar. She was upset, wanted to go home. Thomas got angry. He didn't want them to leave. They got to his campsite. He offered them a beer. Renee, trying to be adult, said yes. Mary refused. Thomas made a pass at Renee. Not violent at first, just, "Come on, don't be a baby." Renee got scared. She said she was going to tell her dad. Mary panicked and tried to run, tried to get her bike. Thomas snapped. He grabbed Mary. He said he just wanted to shut her up. He covered her mouth. He held on too long. When he let go, she wasn't breathing. Renee was screaming. He couldn't let her go. He couldn't let her tell. It was a stupid, drunken, awful panic. It took 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and my whole world ended. He spent the rest of the day covering it up. He thought he was smart. He dragged Mary's bike back to the road, threw it in the ditch, even used a rock to put a dent in the frame to make it look like a car. He knew the police would focus on the road. Then he took Renee's bike, the one with my sticker, and dragged it as deep into the woods as he could. He wrapped it around that oak sapling, buried it in leaves, and walked away. He buried them in the shallow grave by the rocks. He clocked into work at the gas station at 4 p.m., and he got away with it for 31 years. He moved to Oregon a year later and never looked back until a bulldozer and a smiley face sticker pulled his whole world up from the dirt. We had the funeral. It was the biggest our town had ever seen. The whole high school class of 1997 showed up, all in their 40s, all weeping for the girls who never got to graduate. I put the silver locket, now clean and polished, into Renee's casket. I also put in a new smiley face sticker. My father stood, supported by my uncles. My mother was there in her wheelchair. She was quiet, holding my hand. In a moment of clarity, she looked at the casket and whispered, "Renee, she was so bright." "Yes, Mom," I whispered back. "She was." It's been a year. The construction resumed, though the developer, to his credit, deeded the acre where the campsite was to the town. It's a memorial park now, just a bench and 2 small oak trees. I go there sometimes. I'm still in the house. My father is quieter, but he's lighter. The not knowing was the poison. The truth, as awful as it is just the truth. I still have the nightmares, but they're different. I don't see Renee and Mary riding away from me anymore. I see myself, a 10-year-old girl, standing in the driveway, her face red with anger, and I finally know what to say to her. I tell her, "It wasn't your fault. You were just a kid. It was never your fault." And for the first time in my life, I think she's starting to believe me. We all live with what ifs. What if I'd been nicer? What if I'd just let her be? But what do you do when the what if isn't your fault at all, but you've carried it for 3 decades? How do you finally set that weight down? Subscribe if you believe every truth, no matter how deep it's buried, eventually surfaces.